Alright, welcome to part 5 where things really get taken up a notch. So just start off, basically I went ahead and created the depth setting that I was talking about in the previous tutorial section. And when basically whenever this height increases, the depth also increases, and then we have this extra little animation control set up that whenever it increases, it's just multiplied and then it's fed into the depth. It's pretty straightforward in Xpresso setting, but I just wanted to throw that out there. It's in the part 5 C4D project file if you want to check it out and look more into it. Okie dokes, so let's head into the big camera settings. So you want to go back to your text animation, and we're going to, let's just hide the animation controls, we don't need that now. And we're going to be adding a lot of user data, that's for sure. Add a group, and let's just rename this camera settings, and one column's fine. And we're going to be putting the data that we just imported into that. And then we're going to want to be putting this in the text controls. We don't have to actually though, because this is camera settings. So this is going to be another subgroup. It's like this is text control. We're going to need the start percent, in percent, duration of the camera move, the starting frame, and camera ease. And basically all these will control the position of our camera. So start position is going to be a percent because we're going to be moving the camera across a spline. So start position, and we'll leave that animated. No, it should not be animatable, sorry. And then just make a duplicate of that, drag it, and hold down Control. And we'll name this in position. And also that's going to be a percent, obviously. Most of the time we're going to be ending on 100%, so that'll be the default value. So it'll be starting at 0 and then moving to 100. Next we'll add another data, which will be the duration of the camera move, and this float object will be let's have it a real for our units, and let's change it to 0.25 for the steps. So basically this is going to be the duration. Let's just type it out right now, and then just put seconds in there so people know this is going to be in seconds. Let's drop this down to 6 seconds max. Let's drop to 5, might as well. And default value, let's just set it at 2.5. And that's our camera move. Start frame, this will be used for when exactly in the timeline the camera will start animating. And that of course will be real instead of a percent. And let's just take this down to 180th frame instead. Actually, let's just not have a max. There's no real point. So 0 is the minimum. 0, you can't really go past negative, you know, it's not going to record anything. So 0 is the minimum, and then max, there's going to be no max for the start frame. And then finally, we're going to add a spline. So we're going to have to pull up the spline, and default value, let's make a nice spline kind of easing in. So basically it starts off here and then eases down into where we need to be. And this will just be, let's name it a camera ramp. And let's not make that animatable. Start frame, not animatable. Duration of camera, not animatable. And we're good to go. Right away it pops up, new setting, camera settings. Nice. Now we just need to create these cameras and all the settings for it. Let's just close this Xpresso editor because we don't need that for now. We're going to need to bring in like a target camera would probably be best, so our target is always at 0. Let's bring this into the text animation. And we're going to want to right click on this and add a Cine4D tag align to spline. And we're going to need a spline, obviously. Let's go with, we can do like either an arc or a helix. I'll go with helix just because we can add a nice ramping up and down effect instead of straight across. So let's edit these settings here. So basically this is going to be the path the camera takes, and obviously it's not going to look too pretty if it's just rotating around in a bunch of circles on top of basically the Cinema tutorial text. So we're going to want to increase this quite a bit, and then the end radius we'll say also about 501-ish, maybe a little bit less. And end radius, we're going to want to end the move over here on the right side of the text. So the end angle, this looks to be about a good position, maybe a little bit more, right here. So the camera would be looping all the way around right now and then ending right here. So we're going to have to change the start angle as well, bring that around. So it's going to be starting here and ending right here. Starting here, ending here. Looking good. Now we want to go to our camera align spline and then put the spline path in the helix. You notice the camera snaps right in there. Drag the helix into our text animation. Let's see how it's looking. Of course we don't have anything set up yet, so we have to go to this position to the 0%, animate in. So that's how our animation path is going to be. Alright, I want to end about right here, let's say. So our angle for our end needs to be about right there. See how it's going to look? And that should be good enough for our camera move. So let's hop into our Xpresso group, and this is what we have so far in our big Xpresso group web we got going on here. Let's zoom into a part that's pretty empty. This is going to be the big Xpresso tag going on. So first off, let's rename, have a remark in here. You can name it like giant text Xpresso madness thing, but I'm not. I'm going to name it camera controls. Okay, now that we have this camera controls here, we can get to the nitty-gritty great giant web of Xpresso madness. So bring in your text animation, and we want to bring in the new camera settings that we all just set up. So camera ramp, we want to choose this ramp effect. All these other ones just deal with the individual points that we made. There's no point to even think about using any of those. It's just this top camera map, and then we're going to need all of these as well. So let's start with the start position, and then in position, and make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see what's going on. Camera duration, start frame, and then the camera ramp. And then of course all this is going to be fed into this little guy, So we want to bring that align to spline into our Xpresso editor. And we're going to want to animate this position here. So we want to bring in the position right here. And that's going to be way over here somewhere that it's not even going to be messing with yet because that is far away. So the main component of this guy to feed into is going to be a remapper. And of course, what we did earlier was just basically inputting this input and then having an output in there. And then we just fed numbers into this output and input stuff. This time we're having all the controls set up in Xpresso. So it's going to be having to add a lot of these in here, and it might get a little confusing, but just stay with me. It'll all make sense in the end. So, easiest thing, camera ramp, that goes into the spline, and the output upper, that's going to be the top number, which is where we want to end, and that's at 100%. And then our output lower is when it is starting, and when the camera starts, we have it on here at 0%. So drag that over. And then our input upper and our input, that's going to be dealing with these two guys. So first off, we're going to have to input a time node, and then we're going to need a math node as well. Calculate math. And we're going to need this camera move. It's in seconds right now, and I'm working on a 30 frames a second timeline right here. So I'm going to have to change this add to multiply, and I'm going to be multiplying this seconds here times 30. So it'll give me 30 frames instead of for every 1 second. Let's change that to 30, and let's bring up a result. So I'm pretty sure we're going to need that just to make sure we have everything working properly. So we have 75 for 2.5 times 30, 75. And then we're going to want to hook this up into the input upper, because that is going to be how long this is going to be going for. And the lower obviously is 0, the input lower, because that's where we're starting. We're starting at 0, and then we're increasing to however long this setting is. So now that we have that taken care of, our input, which is going to be our based on the time in the timeline. So let's just move this up to the top here so we can see everything a little bit clearer. And this time I'll bring that up as well. And we're going to want to have a node of math that's going to be subtracting. So once this guy right here is subtracted by time, it goes into the input. The reason for this, to explain, once this starts, the time starts at 0, and once this starts going and going and going and going, you can see it's actually starting the animation in the background. Pay no attention. So once it starts, what do we have it starting on? Frame 0 or something? Yeah, let's change this to like 30. So right now, this time, it's going to be subtracting the start time. So it's going to be a negative number. So negative, 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 and then once it gets to 30, it goes to 0. And just hook up the result so you guys can see. The reason that we're getting a problem here is because this time, we don't need the time actually, we need the frame, not the time. So if you click on the little red guy, it brings up the frame, not the time, because talking about the frame number. So frame number goes into subtract, and then that will be subtracting from the start frame. And we'll just do a little test here, see how it goes. So the frame right now is at 3. 3 minus the start frame is 30. So that'll be negative 27. And then it goes and goes and goes, and once it gets to that 30, it will go positive and start to animate along the spline. It will be animating on the spline, but it'll just be going in reverse. So once it gets to 30, it'll start at this input position, which is 0, and then it'll animate for 2.5 seconds to the upper position, which is 100% on the spline path. So hopefully I didn't lose you guys there. And what I'm going to be doing is this output is going to be fed into a whole nother Xpresso group that we'll make below here. Basically, we're going to be starting off with, let's just bring in this text animation again. And our camera controls, we'll start with the start position. And then we have to bring in another time. And let's get rid of the time and bring the frame again. Don't want to mess that up. That we'll start this off comparing the two. So Xpresso, logical, we're going to compare. So if this number for the text frame, the start position, if it's higher than the frame number, then it's no good. But if it's lower, it'll start animating. So time will be in the first one, and then start position will be start position. It should be start frame. Sorry. Start frame. Go into there. And then the output right now, it all depends on where we are in the timeline. If it's 1 or 0, 1 being true, 0 being false. So 0, 0, 0, and then once we get past our start frame, should go to 1. But basically, it's not working because this is equal right now. What we want is it to be less than or equal to this guy. So 0, 0, 0, and then it's already under 30. Over 30, 0. Under 30, 1. Perfect. So we're going to feed this compare node, and that's going to be into a condition node, which will be inputting the output of that, the range mapper. Back in Xpresso, we're going to need to get that condition right here. It's going to be fed from this compare, the output. It's going to go into the switch. So if it is 0, it'll go to this input, and if it's 1, it'll go to this input. So basically, we want it, if it's 0, or if it's 1, sorry, if it's 1 right here, we want the camera position to be equal to where exactly we want the start frame, or start position. So this goes into this right here. And the reason, hopefully you guys will get this, is because once this position, we don't want it to be animating at all until we get to this start frame. So our output from there goes into there. Let's hook up the result, see what goes on. 0, and then we get infinite here because I did something wrong up here. But basically, it's all working correctly. And from this condition, we're going to want to input the position of the spline. So let's click on this little guy, make sure it's working. So it's incorrect, and then it goes to 0 once it's before. So now, once it gets to 30, it has the problem because of the coding in here, but it should be starting at 0 and then animating up to 100. So let's go up into our range mapper and see what needs to be fixed here. So I have a feeling what the problem is. It has to do with this math subtract, because earlier we had this hooked up into a result. If we get it to work, had it hooked up into the result, and it was giving me a negative reading, or a negative like infinity reading. So if you just change the data type to integer, that should clean up everything in here to start working again. So let's give it a shot. Notice the result now is negative 15, which is perfect because we're 15 frames away from 30. And let's see if our camera actually works now based on all of this. So we got our camera lined up with our this little guy. Make sure you have that clicked on. And it starts out 0, 0, 0, 0. And then at 30, there's the camera animating. And of course, the big problem here is that our spline, let's close this Xpresso editor, our spline is going the wrong direction. We want it to ease in at the end, not the start. And then it eases in. Perfect. So let's just change the start position to be like frame 13 instead of 30, because by the time we have it animating, the text is already in place. So let's go into text animation, camera settings, change the start frame to the 13th frame now. So now frame 14 we're animating now, and the camera moves in and then slows and eases. Perfect. Exactly what we were looking for. That is some advanced Xpresso work with user data. Hopefully you were able to follow what was going on here. I'll go over it one more time real quickly for the reason for all of this. This align spline, I'm going to take the position out of the condition right there. I'm just going to hook up the output straight into here. So for the camera controls, you'll notice it's the same exact thing going on. You're like, why did I need to do all this extra code in the bottom? Same exact thing's going on. Well, you need it because right now the camera is animating between here and what was it, frame 13? Yeah, frame 13. It's going in. The camera is animating right here. So just to prevent that from happening, we had to put this code in the bottom. So whenever the frame is less than 13, it will be in the start position, which is at 0 for us. So if we just move our start position to like 10%, our camera will move there. And let's hook this back up to the correct position, and it'll be at that 10% marker now. And we can hop into our align spline settings, and you'll see it's 10%. 10%, and then it hops up and animates in. So that's basically Xpresso using the user controls all wrapped up into this nice little simple file going on here. Hopefully we were able to figure everything out and enjoy the tutorial, and you can make your own project files and make self-contained projects that can be easily accessible to you in the future and other people if you're so inclined to do that. If you have any problems whatsoever with this, please let me know. Contact me on the site, and I'll be sure to get back to you on how to fix the problems that you had. Thanks a lot.